Hi, King Dan here. This video is called Absolute Sex is Greater Than Freedom Society. So I was a libertarian before breaking the silence, so I really appreciated what true freedom means. But it wasn't until my uncle Jamal Johnson used absolute sex arguments that I really noticed how absolute sex is what binds and holds and preserves freedom. But unfortunately, that idea is getting shafted today. But you have to think about it. What action process broke down in order for freedom to be lost in the Garden of Eden? That was the breakdown of absolute sex. So absolute sex is greater than freedom society. All right, absolute sex versus freedom society. This is just a simple slide showing you, very high level, basic outline and differentiation characteristics, whatever you want to call it, between absolute sex and freedom society. To be clear, absolute sex is Father's theology. But towards the end of Father's life, I do remember Hyunjin kind of expanding more about the absolute sex kind of mindset and culture. In fact, I remember a dream where Hyunjin shared he was smacked upside the head by Father, and Father yelled, "Absolute sex," as basically meaning the key to expanding the kingdom on earth and really being the only thing that binds humanity together. Hence the thing to focus on. Now, around the same time, Cookjin was promoting Freedom Society. It was really his focus as kind of identifying government as the archangel position. So it's just interesting to see absolute sex and Freedom Society really being the inspirations of Hyunjin and Cookjin Moon. All right, so the difference between absolute sex and freedom society at the next point is absolute sex is kingdom-centered, freedom society is institution or archangel centered. On the kingdom-centered side, the kingdom as defined by Jesus is within you, and then further clarified and kind of put in more depth by Father by saying Cheongyeoguk is where two become one. So clearly there's a family reference. There's an absolute sex reference of where the single individual being created by God joins a spouse, creates a family, becomes part of a tribe, nation, and world. Whereas over on the Freedom Society side, it's really focused at the institutional archangelic level, where you're focusing on the interactions of the archangel, the violation of civil rights, for instance, which are important things. I can talk all day about those. But you're really talking about more political aspects versus true kingdom aspects. So on the absolute sex side, you have its pro-freedom, and then on the freedom society side, it ends up being, shouldn't be, but it ends up being anti-government. So being pro-freedom means that you actually encourage people to take responsibility, to leave whatever plantation that historically people have find themselves, in their own little mental prison. So being pro-freedom actually encourages people to go through the processes of their own, growth stages in their own life. Now, if you focus on Freedom Society, you quickly and easily become a social justice warrior like Cookjin, because basically you're looking for every abuse of government, valid or not. So really, just by the way, Cookjin's not a libertarian. He's obsessed with government, right? He admitted it himself. He's not really interested in God's kingdom. He just doesn't want to go to hell, all right? So it's not really pro-freedom in the true absolute sex sense. So on the next point, absolute sex is held by lineage. So we all are brothers and sisters because we all hold the same lineage, which is directly tied to my parents, which is directly tied to true Father. That's it. We're all brothers and sisters because of that relationship. And it's held, that nation, that society is held together simply because of that relationship. So on the Freedom Society side, it's really easy just by looking in the Garden of Eden that when Adam and Eve lost their lineage and direct connection with God, they also lost their freedom, and human history has been enslaved to Satan ever since. So, absolute sex is the reason why a nation will stay strong and stay prosperous, whereas freedom society will never be able to stay together because its focus isn't lineage. At this point, you can kind of see what's happening, and it's really easy to see. Absolute sex is a causal reality, whereas freedom society is the resultant reality that's expressed when that internal cause is clear. That's it. All right, absolute sex, you fight from the victory, versus freedom societies, you fight for the victory. So, when you fight from the victory, it's really important to remember that Father says he accomplished everything, period. So you're fighting from, and just in your own relationship with Father, in your own everyday life, not being pulled by some other spiritual force, just staying in your family environment. Now, if you contrast that with fighting for the victory, for whatever reason, you'll find some restoration excuse or another to invalidate Father's saying he accomplished everything, right? You'll point to, oh, a Hun mother failed. It's not really a good argument, but it is being used all the time. So basically, as an ends justifies the means scenario, you're constantly getting triggered by people disagreeing with you. And really, all you're doing is just having revolutions of yourself in kind of more of a cyclical form, because you're not actually solving anything. You're just you're actually being quite Marxist if you think about it, because yeah, Cookshan's basically Marxist. He can correctly identify every single kind of valid abuse of government, but it's his solutions that are problematic. The only solutions that I really want to kind of uphold and kind of honor and really kind of promote are the absolute sex-centered solutions. That's it. All right, the Satanic Weapon. Obviously, this is a quote from True Father. Looks like it's coming from 1996. We clearly have to understand that free sex is a satanic weapon to destroy pure love and life in this world. Also, drugs are satanic weapons to intoxicate human beings and break down their ambition of conscience. Alcohol, smoking, and evil social behavior, are also satanic weapons to destroy the human race. Once we understand this clearly, we cannot touch that kind of satanic weapon. The reason why I chose this one is because True Father was actually explaining what Satan uses as his greatest weapon, right? So it's moral decadence and sexual decadence specifically that ultimately ruins the society and builds the state. Now, if you can't figure out where to point your sexual organs, how are you supposed to figure out where to point your AR-15? I don't expect Cookchin to be able to answer that question. So it's really a matter of, if Eve does not have sex with Lucifer, then Adam does not need to shoot Satan. All right, I'll say that a little bit more slowly. If Eve doesn't have sex with Lucifer, then Adam doesn't ever need the opportunity to shoot Satan. Think about it. Basically, if you focus on freedom society, you're going to continually be fighting Satan, because you're continually dealing with the resultant reality, right? You're not actually getting to the root of the problem, where people are having sex with a failed individual, ideology, society level ideology, whatever. So in that example, it is much wiser to actually focus on absolute sex to eliminate even the creation of Satan to begin with, right? If your love tank is full, then people aren't even looking for the satanic weapons of pure love, which ends up creating the health of the state. All right, points to ponder. What topic was True Father focused on at the end of his physical life? Is absolute sex or freedom society the tradition of True Father? What happens if Hyunjin promotes freedom society over absolute sex? If you accept the Chungga Constitution, isn't Principle 2 Right 2 ranked third in priority? What is the long-term effect of focusing on absolute sex? And what is the long-term effect of focusing on freedom society? Will a nation centered on absolute sex be a free society? And what is the primary focus of Sanctuary Church and Rod of Iron Ministries? If you really want to think about it, it's such a waste of time to start talking about freedom society. I love politics. I love talking. I don't mind guns at all. That's how I actually found God, through the political sphere. But freedom society is basically cursing the darkness instead of lighting a candle of absolute sex.